So let's begin now to create a report. So in order to create a report, we have to start with what is known as a query. So in order to begin a query, it's always easy to start with the field in which all the fields which are to be included in the report are mentioned. So I would start with this particular step first, and then we would move back to select all the fields which are required in our report. So let's open up our database, and we would go to create query wizard and a simple query wizard. Okay, so now let's move to the fields that are required. So I need all of these fields, and I'm going to put it in the same order so that it comes in the same order in my report. So last name, first name, gender and age. Let's select the table, its name, and then I would go for gender. Let's take a look, and age. And then race number, KMR, distance, CAIE, and club name. So race number, then KMR, and distance, and my club name. So I would go to my club table for that and pull out my club name. And position. So back to my score table and pull out my position. Okay, once that is done, my total time is a calculated field, so that is going to come up over here. So let's go back up. So in order to calculate total time, I would need the KMR and the distance KM. So that is already included over here. Both the fields are already included here. So let's now go down to the second step, and let's take a look whether all these fields are also included. So club name, then age, and distance KM. So these three fields are already included over here. If not, we need to include it. So now I have finished selecting the required fields that are needed for my query. So let's continue with our query wizard. So I would go to next. It's going to be a detailed query. So here I would give the step number as my query name. So because I would be required to create more queries, so it is easier for me to go ahead and rename according. This query is for this particular step, so it's easier for me to identify. So let me go ahead and take a look at the data. So this is how my data looks like. Now let's move towards the design view and continue with what they are asking us to do in the question. So let's just move this here. Okay, now let's now move to step number 1. So they're asking us to create a calculated field called total time, which is multiplying the KMR by distance, dividing it by 1440. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be coming now to an empty field over here, and I'm going to be creating my calculated field. So click on an empty field, and the easiest way to create a calculated field is to use the builder. So I'm going to click on builder, and over here I'm going to do the calculation. So the calculation is KM hour multiplied by distance KM. So KM hour, select that field, multiplied by distance KM, and the whole thing is divided by 1440. So I'm just going to select the whole thing, put this into parenthesis, and divide it by 1440. So that gives me my calculated field. So this is a field that is going to calculate values and display it at the time of my runtime. That means when my query runs, that's when this is going to get calculated and get saved in this particular query. So this is known as my total time. So I have replaced it now with my total time. So this is the syntax for this particular calculated field. So name of the field followed by colon followed by the fields that are needed for your calculation. Okay, now this now needs to be formatted into the format that they have given unto us, and that is HH, MM and SS. So I'm going to come back over here, click on my field and open up my property sheet. Here under format, I'm going to be giving the format that they have asked for, MM and SS. Okay, and then click. Let's just close this. It changes, it doesn't matter, it's going to work. And let's now run this and let's see how the result looks like. So I've just run this now, and let's take a look at our results. So I can see all the details clearly, and you can see that the total time is also formatted in the method that they have asked. Okay, so step 1 is now complete. We're now moving towards step 2. So club name includes the text MTB. So let's go back to our design view now, and let's take a look at club name. So where is club name? Here. So it includes the word MTB. Now before you start typing out the condition or the criteria over here, it's a good idea to take a look at the data. So we have club name over here. Let's take a look at the data that is there. So we need to include MTB. So you can see that I have MTB over here. I have MTB that is here. So we have MTB in the middle, we have MTB at the ending, we have MTB that begins. You have a word or a text that begins with MTB. So when they use the word includes, we're going to use the wildcard character star in order to include this word. So it can be in the beginning, it can be in the middle, it can be at the ending also. So let's now move towards our design view. So under club name, under the criteria section, we are going to use the wildcard character star, which means any number of characters, and include the word MTB and close it with a star. So this is the meaning. Includes MTB means any number of characters before, any number of characters after, but it should include the word MTB. So when I come out of it, you can see that Access will put the syntax, okay, like with quotation marks and the wildcard characters, which includes the word MTB. Now let's run it and take a look whether our criteria is met. So if you take a look, you can see that all our text is including MTB. Okay, so let's move to the next part now. So the next part is where the age is 20 or more. So let's go back to our design view and let's move to the age part. Okay, so age is 20 or more. So 20 is included. So we use the relational operator greater than or equal to 20. Okay, and then we can run it at this point and again take a look if our criteria is working. That way, if there is any error, we would know which criteria caused the error. So 20 or more, you can see that we have 20 and above. We don't have anything that is below 20. Okay, so let's go back to our design view and take a look at the next criteria. Distance is 50 or 75. So the distance should either be 50 or 75. So let's include that. So we're going to use our logical operator or over here. So it's 50 or 75. So we have three logical operators: or, and, not, which is usually included at your IG level. So or means you give me 50 if there is a value that contains 50 in this column. If 50 is not there but 75 is there, you can give me that. Okay, so either one. Okay, if any one of them is included, you can, select data from that and give that to me. So let's run it. So it's around, where is distance? So 75 or 50. If you can see the values, they are either 75 or 50. So we have around total 40 records which have been filtered out. So that's usually the number of records. Around that much is usually the number of records that will be filtered out once your query is done. So we go ahead and save this query and let's move on now to the report. Now let's begin the report. So we're going to again go back to the step where we need to select all these fields in our report, and they've asked us not to group the report. So we are going to start with a report wizard. So back to create tab, go to my report wizard, And this time I'm going to select the query, that is query step number 23, and select all my fields. And let's just cross check all of them if they are in the same order. So I have last name, first name, gender, age, and race number. Okay, then KMR, distance, club name, position, and total time. They're all in the same order itself. Okay, so let's move on to the next part of the wizard. So here they're asking us not to group data. So sometimes the data would look like this. So this is incorrect. There is a grouping that is happening over here. Okay, sometimes the data is looking like this. So this is incorrect. They want all the data to come together. So in case your system shows this way, ensure that you have selected it in such a way that all the data is selected together. Okay, now here is when if they have asked you for any grouping, you will select that particular field. For example, I want all my data to be grouped by last name. So last name will appear one time and the rest of the data will appear next to it in rows. So I don't want that. They've told us not to hold any grouping. So I'm just going to remove that. So your data stays together. Let's move on to the next part. Now here they have asked us to be able to sort the data in the order of club name followed by the ascending order of position. Now there are two things that we can do over here. We can do our sorting over here, okay, club name followed by sorting of position, or we can skip the part here and do it in our report. Now what happens when we sort the data over here is when we move to the reports, club name and position will come first and the rest of the data will come second. So we will just have to spend a little time arranging the data. That's the only difference. Okay, if you want to skip that part, you can skip it and go ahead to the report and then sort the data in the report itself. So both I will be able to show you. Okay, so let's move on over here. Let's come back now to the beginning part of our report. They told us that it should be a tabular report, and if we come down over here, it's in the landscape orientation and it should fit a single page wide. So it's tabular, we need it in a landscape orientation, and this should be checked to ensure that all my fields are coming into a single page. Let's move on and let's take the data. So it is MTB marathon results. So I would prefer to put the name directly over here so that the report name is entered immediately. Okay, so I've entered the name of my report over here. You can either preview the report or let's just modify the report and later on we can preview it. So we are now in the design view of our report. Let's continue. So now we'll come to this step where we have to only include the text as a title at the top of the page and formatted so that it is black, 30 points, and in a serif font style. So let's select this data and let's increase the text size to 30 points. I'm just going to type it out over here, and serif is Times New Roman. So let's just include that over here. Okay, so that part is done, and let's make it viewable. Let's increase the size of the label. Okay, next one, all letters are fully visible. It is fully visible. Now, has your name, center number and candidate number in the footer of the report so that it appears on every page. Now, in our report view, that is in our design view of the report, we have two sections for header as well as for footer. So in the footer, we have our page footer and we have our report footer. So if I expand this a bit, you will see the report footer. Page footer means it's going to come on every page of my printout. So if my report is 2 pages or 3 pages, whatever I put in my page footer is going to come on every page. Report footer is used to summarize data. So it is going to appear only on the last page of my report. So if I have a 3-page report and I've printed it out, whatever data I put in my report footer is going to come only on the last page. It will not come on the first page or on the second page. Therefore, my candidate details need to come on my page footer and not on my report footer, because I want it on every page. Okay, so I'm going to use a label for this. I'm going to go into my design tab, and I'm going to use a label, not a text box, a label, and I'm just going to position it over here. So now we've entered our candidate details. Let's now move on to the rest of the report. Okay, so we finished off basically whatever has been asked for us in our report. Before we print off our report, we need to take care of the formatting. So once this part is done, I'm now going to move on and into my layout view, and I'm going to take a look at my layout view. But first I need to check the order of my report. So let's scroll back up over here, where they said that it should be, all the fields should be shown in this particular order. So there's a mark for this. So it begins with last name. Now because we have sorted our data into ascending order of club name and position, that's the reason why this has come in the beginning. So if you have done it from the wizard, what you need to do now is move these two into the correct position. So I'm just going to move it up, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the rest of the fields and move it towards the side. Okay, and then we will bring club name and position just before total time. So let's cross check again. So after distance km is club name, position, and then we have total time. So I'm going to bring this down over here. Okay, and the same thing we're going to do with position, bring it over here. All right, and we also need to do this with, this is the labels, and these are the values or the data that is going to be displayed in my report. So again, I'm going to select and I'm going to move this here, and I'm going to bring club name and position into this particular portion over here. Okay, now once this is done, we are now going to go ahead and take care of the formatting of our report. So we're going to use a layout view for this. Okay, so we can also go into view and let's take a look at the layout view. So it's easier for us to format our report from the layout view. So main thing is that there should be no spaces, or the spaces should be reduced, and all your data should be clear. So last name, let's reduce the text box size or the label size. We don't need so much of data, and we're going to move first name and its data. Use your arrow keys and move it closer. So it's spaced out, but at the same time there isn't too much of spacing in between. So let's reduce the spacing. Data should be seen, at the same time there shouldn't be too much of white spacing. So we'll just move it a little bit more, reduce the space. Okay, and so on we need to do for all. Okay, now if you take a look over here, so we are not able to see this text properly. So we need to expand the text boxes such that the data and the label such that the data is all clear and visible. So let's do that for all our fields. So after I have adjusted the layout, okay, so this is how my report looks like now. I've removed all the extra spaces and I've spread it across so that it does not take too much of white space. Now if you take a look, we need to check that all our data is clearly visible and there is nothing that is cut out. So I'm going to go into my print preview now and take a look. How is it going to look when it's printed? Let's take a look at the total number of pages. So we have around 1 page and it's a 2-page report. So usually reports will be around 2 pages or maximum 3. It will not go beyond that. If your pages are much more than 2 or 3 pages, then you need to again cross check your query whether you have covered all your criteria correctly. Okay, so if you take a look, this is our print preview. We have our candidate details appearing on the 2nd page and the candidate details appearing on the 1st page. This is very important, otherwise they will not hand over the printouts to you at the time of your examination. We also need to cross check whether data is clearly visible. So all my data seems to be clearly visible. There is nothing that is cut out over here. So by using the print preview, you can cross check. Okay, this is a little long name, so you can just cross check whether anything has been cut out in my first name or last name, and if you have any doubt, you may increase the space a little bit over here, just to, because there's more space here, so we can bring the first name a bit more this side and increase the space for last name, just to be on the safe side that nothing has been cut out. Okay, now my report looks fine, and it is, go back to the question paper, cross check once again, and you can go ahead and print this. Now some of the errors in general that students face, I would just like to show some of those common errors that students face at the time of printing or preparing this report during the exam. Okay, now some of the common mistakes students do is they sometimes tend to put a lot of space between the sections, or they tend to put a lot of space at the report footer, and let's put a little space at the page footer. Now let's take a look at the print preview. Okay, so the more space you put, if you have noticed, the space between fields have gone up. Okay, so when you do that, your number of pages also go up. So instead of 2 pages, if you have noticed, my printout has gone up to 3 pages. So in order to reduce the number of pages, reduce the sizes. So ensure that there isn't spaces between the different sections. Okay, so the way to fix that is, like I have mentioned, reduce the spaces. Ensure that you are not keeping any space that is extra. Okay. Next, sometimes when you finish your report section would be a little like this. So when it is beyond what is required for you, let's just take a look at the print preview. Okay, you can get an error like this, and then when I take a look at the number of pages, you can see there is a blank part that is coming in between of my pages. So in order to avoid that, let's go back to our design view. Ensure that your report section is just stopping at your last field. So you've reduced the section spacing, and therefore it will ensure that your printout fits within the printout page itself, or within your A4 sized sheet it's going to fit. Okay, so these are 2 of the common errors that can occur and how you can fix it. So this with this the first report is we have done the first report. Once you have checked everything, cross check it back with your question paper, go ahead and print it. 2 to 3 pages is what can be expected out of the printout for the bigger report. Okay, so now we'll be moving on to our next report. So you're done with printout 2. We'll move on now to our second report. Again, we are going to prepare what is known as a tabular report. So again, we are going to go towards the position where the step where all your fields need to be selected. So we're going to go back now to our database and start a new query. We are not going to work on the existing query. We'll start a new query wizard and we'll start selecting all the required fields. So I've gone ahead and I've created my new query wizard, and I have selected all the fields. So let's go back up. So select the records by position, county. Okay, so I have both position and county over here. So let's go ahead and complete creating this query. It's a detailed query, and I'm going to call this step number 24. So I'm not working on the previous query. I have taken up a new query altogether, and let's modify the query design and complete it. Okay, so we have step number 24 in our query. Let's run this and take a look at the data. Okay, so now let's go ahead and check what all filtering we need to do. So here we need to filter out records where position is equal to 1. So I need wherever position is equal to 1. Okay, and second is county does not include Kent. So Kent, let's look for the word Kent. Okay, so if you take a look, Let's scroll down. Okay, so we don't need any wildcard characters over here. It's just the word Kent is mentioned over here. That's all we need to exclude. So let's go back to our design view. So position is equal to 1 and our county is, we're going to use the logical operator not Kent. All right. So let's run this and take a look. So this is our report. We have around 35 records that we have filtered out over here. So they've asked us for a tabular report. So step number 1 and 2 is done. We are now going to move on towards this part. Sort the data into descending order of county, and it has the page orientation of portrait. So I'm going to save my query and I'm going to start with my report wizard. So this is done. I'm going to move on to my report wizard and let's select this particular query. Step number 24. Select all the fields. It should be in the same order. Okay, so make sure that it is not in this position. It is going to be grouped together. There is no grouping that they have asked us for. Now we don't need any grouping. Now I'm going to skip this part and I'll show you how to sort the data in the report itself. So I'm going to come here. They've asked us for a portrait, tabular report. All your fields should be fitting within a single page. Okay, and next includes only the text as a title. So this is the text that is given to us. So we're going to go ahead and add that over here, and then let us move on to modify the report. Okay, so we've included our heading and we've come to this design view of the report. So now what we need to do is we need to be able to do this step. Okay, they've asked us not to group the report. We have not grouped it. We need to sort the data into ascending order of county. So we need to be able to do this part right now. Okay, we need to sort the data and it is in descending order. So I have not sorted it in the wizard. Like I mentioned before, if you sort it in the wizard, that field will come in the beginning and then again you have to rearrange it. So in order to do that, a simple way is come to your report itself. I'm in the design view. I'm going to click on group and sort. So I will get a window here and I'm going to add a sort, and I want to sort by county and I want to sort it in descending order. So that is Z to A. So this has now taken care of the sorting for my report and without the positioning of the fields switching. Okay, so this part is done. Now we're going to come here. So it is winning club members as a title displayed in a larger font size, fully visible. They've not given us what size they want, so we are just going to select it and move to a more larger font size. So I would put it as 30 itself and increase the text or the label area so that the text is clearly visible. So this part is also done, and now we have a calculated field, a calculated control. So what we did in the previous report in the query was a calculated field. Here they're asking us to do a calculated total or a calculated control. So we need to calculate the average distance and position it under the distance km column formatted as an integer. So let's come here. So under this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my data. So this is my label, this is my data. So my distance label, I have selected it, and now I need to create the calculated control. So it is the average distance. So again, I'm going to go into my design tab and I'm going to select totals and I'm going to select the average. This I'm going to do after I have selected this field. So if we expand this a little bit, we would be able to see our text box clearly. So average of distance, that has been done, and it is supposed to be formatted as an integer. So formatted as an integer means I should not get any decimal places for this. Okay, so I can either use a formula and write int over this, I can also select this box and I can use my property sheet and remove the decimal places. Okay. So now we have the average of distance. Now we need to format this. So instead of using the int function, they've just asked us to format it as an integer. So I have selected the label or the text box over here, and we'll go to property sheet. And over here, we're going to choose 0 decimal places and modify the format to display fixed. Okay, so now let's save this and take a look at the report. We also need to have a label displaying what is this summarized data. So that is your average race distance. So this is going to be a label at the left of this value. So we're going to use a label over here, and we're going to move it to the left and type in the data that they have shown us. So I've typed in the label also. Let's take a look at the print preview and review our report. Okay, so we do need to do some modification because we cannot see the data clearly. And let's take a look at the total number of pages. We have 2 pages and we have the summarized data that is coming over here. So since we have 2-page report, we're going to be putting our candidate details at the footer of our page. So let's move now to the layout view and let's make the alignment in such a way that we are able to see the data clearly. So reduce the size over here and take care of the remaining white spaces. Remove the extra white spaces and ensure that the data is presentable and all the data is visible. So I'm just removing these extra spaces that are coming at each of these text boxes, ensuring that it will not cut off the data, and just adjusting it so that there is a sufficient space for the whole report. As you can see, I'm not able to see the last record, that is the last line distance. So I'm just going to bring it and space it out neatly. And I'll just expand this a bit so that no data would get cut out. So keep doing this till you're able to see all your data. So I've done up to here right now, and I'm just going to take a look at the print preview and see overall if I can see the data all clearly. Nothing is being cut out. So let's scroll up and down and take a look. Okay, so I just need to check if this data, Anna Gabrielle, is clear. I think we can move the last name a bit more towards the right side to make sure that it is clear. So I'm just going to do that now. Back to the layout view. Let's close the print preview, back to the layout view, and I'm just going to move my last name a bit more because I do have space, and space out my first name a bit more. And let's take a look again at the print preview. And yeah, so that's quite clear. And okay, so we have data that has come into a single page itself. So we can now go ahead and add the candidate details. If you take a look, my average distance, the G is getting cut off a bit, and my summarized average is not appearing below distance km. So these are 2 things that I need to take care of in my design view. So I've spaced out my label over here and expanded this text box also, because you need to take a screenshot also. So I'll just expand it, and let's take a look at the print preview, and it should be directly below the distance field. So I'm just going to take a look at the print preview now. Okay, so it still needs to move below my distance km, so we need to move it a bit more in our design view. So I'm just going to move that, and this should be about it. And now you take a look, we need to add our candidate details. So I'm going to add it over here. Just remove this, and we're going to use a label and insert your candidate details over here. So your name and your center number and your candidate number. This is what you need to enter at your which should be present in your report. So I've completed it. I have put it below my distance field, and I have my label also to the left of the summarized data, and it is an integer value. So cross check again with the question paper, and when you are sure that all your data is matching and your alignment is correct, go ahead and print the report. This is a single page report. So with this, we are done with the database task of paper 2, November 2020. Now let's move on to what evidences they have requested. So we need to take a screenshot of the formula used in the database to calculate the average distance. So we need to take a screenshot of this particular formula alone and place it in the evidence document. I have done that. I can see clearly the average formula and the field which has been used to calculate the average. So ensure that you expand the text box and take the entire data, and the data is not cut off. So now what is required for us is to export the report that we have just created into a PDF file and save the exported file with an appropriate file name in your work area. So we go back to our work area and we're going to export this data now. Okay, so this is the report that we need to export. So now I've closed it after saving the file. I'm going to go into this report. Make sure that you have selected the correct report, and then you go into your external data and click on your PDF. So if they've asked you to export in any other formats, you can find it over here. So here they've asked us to create it as a PDF, and I will just go into my folder and I'm going to save this over here as Winning Club members. I'll just add the word report. Any suitable naming convention can be used, and then go ahead and publish it. So it will get published and you can see the report over here. We need to now place an evidence of the exported file which is saved in our work area. So let's go back to our work area. So this is our report. So I'll just move it up, and they have asked us to show clearly the file type. So expand it and then take a screenshot showing this and pasting it into our evidence document. So let's take a screenshot. Make sure that you show your work area, that it is saved inside your work area and not anywhere else, and paste this into your evidence document. So with this, our task 3 step is done. So make sure that you can clearly see the file type and the name of the report clearly.